Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon, not here with Geeky Sparkles in this video, but she'll be back later. Don't worry. We're going to talk about websites, pop culture media, geek news sites, ad rates, and kind of my unified theory of everything. I'm trying to formulate a theory as to when these sites became compromised by people that were more about activism than about pop culture. And it seems to go hand in hand with very low or no pay. That's just a theory I have. If other people have more information, it would be greatly appreciated. But I have been comparing notes now that we are trying to build up our own sites again. piratesandprincesses.net, which is a Disney and theme park specific website, which is doing very, very well, by the way. Clownfishtv.com. We're padding out our content with more news by other contributors and mixing that in with our videos, so you can go out to that. And the weird thing is we actually pay our contributors. We don't pay them a whole lot. I mean, I'd love to pay people more, but we try to pay them in line with what our expected ad revenue is every month. And I'm finding out, talking to people, that in many cases they worked for these websites for very, very little pay or no pay. And then it kind of clicked. It's like, how did these activists kind of come in and infiltrate the pop culture space when clearly a lot of them don't have a lot of interest in geek stuff? I mean, there are some people that do, that maybe they have a different political opinion. They legitimately are interested in pop culture and geek stuff, anime, video games, all of that. But we do articles like this or videos like this talking about these gaming journalists that just seem very unhappy. They seem very unhappy where they're at. And it's like, why are you writing about this stuff? And in some cases, I think it was, a stepping stone to what they thought was going to be a gig at like the New York Times or MSNBC or something. And now that all these websites are imploding, BuzzFeed and Vox and Vice and Gizmodo and all of these websites that actually paid a salary out of venture capital, by the way. They're paying a lot, in a lot of cases, they're paying salaries out of venture capital. But a lot of these websites that were kind of probably the end goal for a lot of these people are going out. You can just feel the dissatisfaction, the unhappiness, the depression. I mean, in a lot of cases, I'm reading a lot of articles lately that I don't even laugh at the articles so much anymore because they were ridiculous, but you can just feel that a lot of these journalists are just resigning themselves to the fact that, like, this is it. This is it. This is as far as my journalism career goes. And I really don't give a shit about video games or comic books or animation or anime or any of that stuff. I wanted to be working for a real news outlet, and I just wanted to build my portfolio. And the outlets I wanted to work for are going out of business. They're laying people off. What am I going to do? And you can feel it. And I can feel it on Twitter too. I mean, there are a lot of journalists losing their shit on Twitter, getting very, very salty, very, very aggressive, especially with YouTubers. And, so let's talk a little bit about this, because this is kind of my theory of everything, of what has kind of gone wrong in the pop culture space over the last 8 or 10 years. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants here on Clownfish TV. 275,000 subs, not a whole lot. I mean, it's amazing, and thank you for the support, but it's so weird that we get so much blowback from journalists in pop culture when we're actually a very, very tiny channel. Could you imagine if we were like Mr. Beast, with like tens of millions of subscribers? That they would lose their minds. But they're mad that there are YouTubers out there with a couple 100,000 subscribers, and we're in a different weight class than some of these other channels. I think honestly, somebody like Mr. Beast or PewDiePie would just completely ignore these people. Then we know in PewDiePie's case, he just stays off of Twitter, right? Mr. Beast goes on Joe Rogan. He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't have to. He's got millions of dollars. But let's talk about this, because look, these sites are laying off. Netflix shut their blog down. Legendary, that's Nerdist. Again, they are laying people off, or have been laying people off for a long time. I don't even know what's left of Nerdist, to be honest. And a lot of these websites, what's sad is they actually started out as like legit pop culture sites. Comic Book Resources, Newsarama, Nerdist, they were actually for fans by fans at first, and then they, got big, and then companies like Valnet came in and bought them. But I'm asking around, and it turns out that in a lot of cases, a lot of these websites didn't pay people. They really didn't pay people. So the sites that were paying people and paying them at least a living wage tended to be the Voxes and the Vices and the BuzzFeeds and the Gizmodos and all of that. And that money, I don't think, was coming out of advertising. I mean, ad rates fluctuate. They do. It's up and down. But really, a website has to have another revenue stream, whether it's merchandise sales or memberships, paid version of the website. You can't depend on banner ads. Banner ads fluctuate, and especially now. I mean, I'll tell you, we own a lot of websites, and we've been running various websites for about 15 years now, and the banner ad rates are dropping off a cliff. They're dropping off a cliff because we're entering a recession or an economic downturn, whatever you want to call it. And marketing is one of the first things to get cut. Now, if you have a decent business model set up that you have, paid subscribers, and they're loyal subscribers, they'll see you through, Patreon or something like that. In fact, I was digging around Dread Central. I guess they had to do Patreon to stay in business, which is so weird because I always thought they were pretty decently sized site. And again, the point of this isn't to, pick on any of these websites. In particular, I'm just trying to point out that, even in 2016 when the ad rates were good, Dread Central to stay online had to turn to Patreon to pay the bills. So again, we're seeing more and more layoffs. And I think what happened, again, this is just my personal opinion. And I've been asking around, I've been comparing notes. I think what happened with a lot of these people was that they wanted to get to an end goal, whether it's they wanted to work in the industry, whether it's comics or animation or movies or whatever, or they wanted to be a real journalist. They wanted to make use of, whatever degree they got, and they took gigs that did not pay well or didn't pay at all just to get their foot in the door. Kind of like a Reddit mod plus, it's like the next step above Reddit mod, power hungry Reddit mod is, I get to be a digital journalist, and in a lot of cases they would go out and they would, infiltrate message boards and chats and get into hobbies that they weren't really fans of to begin with. And then immediately you knew, that they were just kind of faking it because they would get in, they'd be like, hey, let's change everything. We saw this in tabletop. We saw it in video games, and again, the end goal was never that thing. I mean, I've listened to, videos from Zach, talking about Hollywood and comics. And it's true. There are a lot of people, they don't really like comic books. They're working in comics or writing comics or whatever. Really, it's just supposed to be the stepping stone to Hollywood. And then they're finding out Hollywood is very, very fickle. And there are people that focused 100% on Hollywood and didn't even mess around in comics that are having a hard time. And careers have an ebb and flow. And it's kind of the same with these digital journalists. So this is what I think happened. What happens when you become a journalist or you work for digital media is you're in proximity to power, as Hamilton said, proximity to power. And you get to interview celebrities. You get to interview directors. You get to network with people in the media. I mean, hell, we're getting invites. I'm not even asking to be invited to shit. And HBO invited us to the House of the Dragon premiere at San Diego. I was like, wow, that's wild. Some party over there. And, we didn't have time to go, but it's, what I'm saying is you get invited to these sorts of things. You hobnob. You start to think it's possible that you can, get a job in Hollywood. And that's why a lot of these people work, I believe, for little or no pay. They either want to, write comics to get into Hollywood, or they just want to, a shortcut to Hollywood. And look, it's worked in some cases. I mean, there are several examples of people that were, fan journalists or fan creators or just fans of stuff that got into that culture and made the rounds and networked and whatever. And then they wound up, producing shows themselves or movies themselves or whatever. And I'm thinking in comics, you've got, Gail Simone, who was out there on LiveJournal constantly talking about comics until she finally broke into comics. Several people that started out as journalists and then they broke into comics. And now comics is like not the end goal anymore. Like I said, it's Hollywood. Most people, if they were looking to make a living, would not be working for a place like, CBR, $10, $20 for an article. There are other places that pay better. There are places that don't pay at all that I was really shocked. And in fact, I don't even know if CBR is paying this anymore. I've heard that the pay has been slashed at a lot of these places because of the downturn in advertising. So you might have people out there cranking out a bunch of articles, making $5, $10 an article or whatever. And, they basically get to write whatever the hell they want to write. CBR is kind of a blank slate. Now, obviously they have a lot of activists, working at this site or whatever, because they've been, back and forth with people I've seen on Twitter about Eric July's campaign. They've been kind of blacklisting him, but I don't think their corporate owners really give a shit. I don't think they really care what the content is as long as it gets hits and brings in ad revenue and they pay for themselves. And as long as the company doesn't get sued for slander or libel or whatever. I don't think they care. So you've got people that are like, yes, with the keys to the car have been left in it. The engine's running. Let's just, it's something else somebody else built. Let's go in and just, take it over. And if I can't get into Hollywood, at least I can own the chuds, with this website. Nobody's really checking. I don't think we really have very much editorial in place at a lot of these sites looking at some of the articles. Cause I'm like, there's no way in hell that this would, a fully staffed newsroom would ever pass muster. And I don't think it is. I think they're basically glorified Tumblr blogs. We've talked about this before. So what I'm saying is that a lot of people came into this scene because they were willing to work for cheap or nothing just to have the platform. And that's basically it. And to some people, that platform means everything, whether it's to push your activism or to push into some other industry or whatever. The platform means more than the money. And you're going to get people that are less inclined to be capitalists, I believe, that are going to take you up on that offer because, again, clout is more important than cash. And, a normal person would be like, I need to get paid. Hell no, I'm not working for nothing. I need to get paid. They think they're going to get paid down the road. Either paid in karma or paid with, a little something, little gig at Lucasfilm or a little gig at Marvel Comics or whatever. If they fight the good fight and they smack down these companies' enemies or whatever. And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't matter how much you stand for these companies. They will toss you aside like a used tissue when they're done with you. I know. I was in the inner circle of Disney. I've been to places you will never see. And that is what happens. When you're no longer useful to them, they toss you aside. So I think going forward, and again, there's like a whole section here on Wikipedia about media activism, basically getting involved in publishing news on websites and audio and all that to push your political agenda. But I think going forward, what is going to have to happen for pop culture to kind of be reclaimed by the nerds is that, one, it needs to kind of fall out of vogue with the mainstream. Again, because the mainstream is not paying as much attention to it. Two, we need to get actual fans, actual consumers of these products writing about them again. We need to get these websites boosted again that do advocate for the consumer, advocate for actual fans. And so many of these sites have been gobbled up by a handful of corporations, and they seem to be losing their grip a little bit. Like I've noticed that sites like even the Mary Sue is not getting the traction it used to get. In fact, Geeky and I were talking about them earlier today, and we said that, they seem to be pivoting back to more middle of the road content. And I think that they're doing that because they realize that the Trump outrage train is pulling into the station at this point, and they got to go back to talking about pop culture. And I do remember the Mary Sue was mostly a pop culture website from a women's point of view 10 years ago, and there's nothing really wrong with that. And then 2016 happened and it broke so many of these websites. But I think we're going to see a lot of them fold, a lot of smaller ones especially, because it's not really sustainable long term. And I think we're going to have to basically see a lot of this media get replaced. I think a lot of these corporations are going to nope out shut these websites down, sell them off for next to nothing, and because they're not really worth it to them. Again, you can be profitable, but not profitable enough, and that's a good opportunity for fan-run websites, and that's kind of what we want to do. It's kind of what we want to do, kind of bring it back to center and create stuff that, these are, clownfishtv.com hopefully is a website like you would have found 10, 15 years ago before everything got crazy. We need more of that. So I'm going to wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.